Excellent. All right. Welcome everyone
Hello,
to
can you
another.
hear me?
Yes, excellent. We're joined just in time. All right. But unfortunately, I'm actually away from home, so I haven't got my little script with me. So I'm just gonna have to freelance this. So welcome everyone to another episode of the Gin and Tonic Show. As I'm sure you're all aware, we're a podcast that specializes in providing critical, accurate information about Islam and various different facets about Islam, including history, politics, theology, and that kind of thing. We aim in particular to counter the misinformation promulgated by Christian apologists, the far right, Muslim apologists, and other parties of misinformation. The show is hosted weekly, currently at 9 a.m. Sunday UTC. Streams live at the allotted time on our YouTube channel as it is right now. All shows are recorded and uploaded for later use and for later viewing, And if you want to call into the show whilst we are live, at some point we will post the link in the live streaming YouTube comments, and you can just click on that link and come in to join the call at some point whilst we're live, and you can ask questions. There's probably post that halfway through the show. Cool. All right. Before I introduce our guest, do you want to do your definitions, Stop?
Yeah, this is what we normally do. We just do the intro and we just, explain what it is that we're doing. So we're not trying to be rude to you. We're just sort of setting and laying the field. So what we're doing is we're talking about Islam. We're talking about the religion. We're talking about the socio-political system. We're talking about the ideology. We're talking about the political ideology. And we're talking about the worldview, where it's actually a way of life, where the religion determines all these other elements, where the political ideology is being implemented in several regions on this planet right now. And people always ask me, why do I call it a political ideology? Well, it's trying to be exactly that. It's trying to organize a state. It's trying to organize all sorts of things in the form of a state. The whole thing is based on interpretations of the Quran, and because the Quran is so vague and ambiguous, the interpretation of secondary texts, the Sunnah. We are atheists. In other words, we do not follow any dogma or agenda. We don't want anyone to convert. We just want to make people think. We try and convey objective, accurate information. If we make a mistake, please let us know. But as far as the atheist goes, there's only a single attribute associated with an atheist, and that is the opposite of a theist. And because a theist believes there is evidence for the existence of a god or gods, the atheist does not believe there's any evidence for the existence of a god or gods. So we don't have any opinion on science. We don't have any opinions on anything, not on politics, not on anything. We just do not believe that there's evidence for the existence of gods. Now that makes it very easy. The theist makes the claims that there is evidence, and so the theist has to bring up the evidence. So if you, for example, if you believe that there is evidence for the existence of dragons, then you need to bring up the evidence for the existence of dragons. Until you do, I'm going to remain an dragonist. I do not base my worldview on this not believing in dragons, and I don't think neither are you. So this is the proposition under which we work. So what we are doing is looking at Islam. I just quickly give an overview because we have Heina on today. I'm not going to do this let me do it the other way around. Let's do Heina first, and then if there is anything during, at the end or whenever, then we'll just come to the news, because this is much more important than just reading out what Erdogan or some other idiot did during the week. So, Heina, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself, or Kling, have you sort of prepared anything?
Sure. Well, for those who aren't aware, Heina is can I say Daisy American, or
Yeah,
American
that's
with
as
it?
close. That's as close as we're gonna get, I think.
Ex-Muslim, militant atheist, who gives a lot of talks and writes on is it free thought blogs?
Yeah, that's my network. Yeah.
Yep, and has spoken at Skepticon, and is variously interested in philosophy and these kinds of issues. Yeah. I guess
And Hina,
in a nutshell.
if you're okay with switching on your video, please do. We always have the video on. I'm the only one who doesn't, for
Sure thing.
job reasons, because I work in Middle Eastern countries, and I would not receive a work visa if they would know who is saying what about Islam. So this is a bit of a sensitive issue with me. And since I'm still, like getting work and contracts from there, I'm the only one who's a little bit camera shy.
That's okay. My face and my name is everywhere, so at this point I can't hide.
And it's actually much better like that, because you're creating a brand for yourself, and this is brilliant. The Klingschor normally has it switched on, but because he's incapacitated at the moment, and he's useless at technology, so he doesn't know how to do these things.
Here I am. I'm here. But I've had a
Oh,
bad
he
day,
is
so I'm a
proving
bit,
you wrong. Oh, you're such a
I'm a
naughty boy.
I'm a bit ruffled, guys. You caught me in a state of undress. But anyway, all right. So, Heina, would you like to tell us a bit about what you do and what you're interested before we get into any subjects or issues?
Okay, so I started out a Muslim, was born and raised pretty religious. I personally was also very religious. Through philosophical inquiry, I ended up an atheist at 18, essentially, and I thought I could keep it a secret, but I ended up coming out to my family. There was the requisite drama for several years. People in the community were angry and gossipy, and my mother and my family really suffered, so I shut up for a while so that the gossip would die down. But I stayed local in my local atheist and skeptic communities because I frankly felt really alone. My parents had me convinced that I was the only person who thought the way I did and that I must be crazy or something, but finding community locally was very helpful to me in realizing that that wasn't true. And then, what was it, about 3 years ago, they put out a call on the Skeptic network for writers, and I thought, oh, this is a platform that already exists, I should jump on that, and so I did, and now I have my own platform at Free Thought Blogs. My interest mostly is, it's a really specific and narrow focus, and that's educating on Islam and the ex-Muslim experience within the atheist, skeptic, secular community. It's a very small, very narrow focus, but it's been working for me, and I think it's something that's important because atheists love talking about Islam, but they don't love necessarily learning about it first.
Yeah.
But they generally will trust me over a Muslim to give them information because I'm not trying to convert them. If anything, I'm trying to make them see that it's essentially just it's the same crap as Christianity in a lot of ways. So that's kind of my approach. Although I try to also take the humanizing Muslims approach because that's a problem with a lot of Americans, I'd say especially. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. I don't just talk about Islam, I talk about various other issues, but obviously this is with a focus on Islam. And that's definitely the bulk of what I do and what I talk about.
Cool. Today we were, as pre-discussed, the sort of issues we're going to look at today involve things like, what is it like being an ex-Muslim in the US? Because I'm more familiar with the UK experience, because most of the Muslims I know are British. So what's it like in the US comparatively?
Well, I mean, there's a huge difference between how it was before and how it is now, because I did come out 8 years ago now. It's been closer to 9 years now, actually. And when I first came out as an ex-Muslim, it was unheard of for the most part. A few people had heard of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, that was about it. And so I think the main reaction at first to being an ex-Muslim was disbelief and shock. And you still see that in some people. I still have occasionally random people coming at me online saying, how are you real? How are you a Muslim and you're not? You must be a liar or a Zionist agent. No, I really was a Muslim, and now I really am not. But I would say back then it was more, the more shock value was there. That's not why I came out, but that's kind of what happened. There were some threats in the sense that people were telling me that people were talking, but I don't know if any of them were 100% credible. But, you know, I did sort of take them seriously in the sense that I didn't want to die or be hurt. So, but yeah, it was mostly, I would say, social pressure that got me. It was the fact that my family was still Muslim and in the Muslim community, and they were being scorned, ostracized, humiliated, mocked. You know, people would come up to me and very pointedly ask me certain questions. They do that to my parents a great deal. And so it was really just a lot of, you know, we're this little immigrant community, especially beleaguered since 9/11, because that really changed the way being a Muslim in America was like. And suddenly, you know, one of their own, one of the most religious of their own, which was me, is suddenly saying that they're not just, you know, not practicing Islam, they're straight up atheists. So to them, that was just, I think it was just very jarring, and they didn't know what to make of it. These days, I wouldn't say it's common, but it's definitely less unheard of. Me and other people who came out around the time I did really paved the way that way. So now we've heard of these people, we just hope our kids don't become like them, as opposed to, we've never heard of these people, what's wrong with you?
Can I ask the most obvious question, the one that everybody asks? What did it?
What did it? What made me deconvert? I like to joke.
Doesn't everybody automatically ask you that? Isn't it like the...
Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yeah, no, it's a standard line of inquiry. Unfortunately, it's one that I don't have a stock standard quick answer for, but I'll do my best to be concise.
Damn, and I thought, here's the magic silver bullet.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that simple. I mean, my parents got very religious when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And we actually did move to London for a year, and I feel like that's where I really became religious, because my parents were getting religious. They bought all these books. I was 6, 7 years old, and I was reading the books before they even read them, adult-level Islamic books. And I took it very seriously because I was a very literal, very obedient child, and I wanted nothing more than for everybody to be pleased with me. And it seemed like everybody didn't have rules to give me, or they assumed that I would know the rules, but all these Islamic books taught me all the rules of how to make people pleased with me. And I came back to the U.S. after a year. It didn't work out living in London, but I was really sort of religious because of that. And the kids here made fun of me constantly. I remember my cousins would see me, you know, eating a banana, and they'd say, that's haram, because they made fun of me because I used to tell them that things were haram. I sincerely thought, though, that they didn't know that things were haram that they were doing. And I was just telling them to save them from hellfire. I didn't think that I was being superior to them in any way, but they took it that way. And so I was socially ostracized even as a Muslim because I was so religious in the U.S. But I kept digging in religion. I kept digging. And, you know, honestly, with a lot of these faiths, the more you look, the less you like what you find, especially if you're a woman. That's a huge thing. But that,
you know, if you say that you were religious,
mm-hmm.
very religious, or like incredibly, what does that translate into in your daily life? I mean, you were still at school, right?
Oh yeah, no, I went to Muslim schools. I went to Islamic schools for the most part. But you know, praying all the time, doing extra prayers. I fasted every Monday and Thursday because that was sunnah. Every little sin I committed, from looking at a boy for too long or hearing music at a grocery store, you know, I would be on my knees every night begging Allah for forgiveness. I covered myself, you know, I wore hijab. I didn't cover my face. My dad didn't let me, and Islamically speaking, I had read that you're supposed to obey your parents more than do something that's not obligatory. And covering your face is not obligatory according to most madhabs, so I didn't cover my face.
Well, was it Hanafi? What was the background for your family?
My family technically is Sunni Hanafi, but they love to say that they were just Muslims.
Ha, okay.
They have that whole BS going on.
We're
the true Muslims, right? No, that's not reality.
We just happen to exactly adhere to the scholars and books and texts and customs of this sect. But,
right.
You know,
it's just myth. Yeah. but yeah, according to most madhab, that you don't have to cover your face, but you do have to obey your father. So I didn't cover my face.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Only the Shafi'i and Hanbali madhahib make it obligatory for women to veil. So that's religiously legit.
Yeah, but I did cover my head, and I did wear loose clothing. I didn't shake hands with men. I tried not to have male friends. It happened anyway because I was nerdy. I still am. And most of my interests were guys were into them, so I had male friends, but I didn't touch them or hug them or anything. Obviously no hand-holding, no sex, no kissing, no dating, nothing like that. Music I went back and forth on. I would listen to it, feel really guilty, shred all my tapes. This was in the days of tapes, right? I would rip up all my tapes.
Wow.
Yeah. But then I would go right back to it. And then I would record tapes off the radio again, and then I would shred them again. I went through this pattern at least a dozen times, at least that I can remember. I delete everything off my computer later in the era of MP3s. So yeah, there was that. I didn't eat non-zabiha meat. I ate only zabiha. I kept curfew with my parents. I didn't fight with my parents. I was very obedient. Even the rules that had nothing to do with Islam, I was very obedient because that's what I thought Allah was telling me. And my plan was to go to university, meet a nice boy at the MSA, marry him, halfway through college. Mostly it was so that I could, have sex and stuff. That was really why I wanted to get married young. And then, have babies after graduation and have a writing career, maybe a teaching career. So I had Islam really dictated all of my life at the time. And that was really the weirdest part about leaving it, was suddenly I could do anything.
And without feeling guilty, yeah.
Well, yeah, there was that too. But I didn't do a whole lot that made me feel guilty. Mostly it was chatting with boys online and sometimes listening to music. But other than that, I was pretty good. Like, I kept the rules pretty closely.
And then the moment came when...
What would you say... Well, before you do, can I just quickly ask, what would you just say? Because I remember I was chatting the other day to a theist who was arguing that, or suggesting in some fashion, that the reason why most or a lot of atheists leave theism is because they want personal freedom. So it's sort of like, I don't want God to exist. I want to be able to, do something. It's like this childish. So basically, atheism is childish. It's just a childish reaction to rules. La la. What would you say that was the case with you? That the only reason you left was because you just didn't want it to be true, and you wanted personal freedom. Like, was it that simple?
Actually, both questions mesh together very well, both what made me leave and that question. Because I was still incredibly obedient to the rules of Islam, even as I doubted Islam. So my doubts of Islam were not, oh, I want to go out and have sex, or I want to go eat bacon. Not at all. My doubts really came from philosophical inquiry. So I took philosophy classes, I had read all these books and all this theology. I was trying to figure out this question that I couldn't get past, which was, had I not been born a Muslim, would I have accepted Islam? I wanted to ask myself that question as honestly as I could, given that I'd been taught this from birth, essentially. And through those philosophical explorations, I discovered that, no, I would not have accepted Islam had I not been born a Muslim. And so
what about Islam?
It's just, okay, you can sort of on some level, except maybe secular deism, that, oh, the universe looks like it's designed, so maybe there's a designer. But that leap from there's a designer and there's a designer that doesn't want you to eat bacon and wants you to cover your head, like, where is that? There's no good reason to jump from one to the other.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
That was my big sticking point. And then I read Dawkins's Blind Watchmaker, and then I realized that a designer was not true either, which is why I identify as an atheist, not a secular deist anymore. But back then, it was mostly that gap between designer of a universe versus wrote this book that very clearly was written by men in a certain period of time. That was really got me. And so I found myself an atheist, but for a while I was an atheist in a headscarf. I didn't
I think
break
this
the
happens
practices
a lot.
of Islam.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have colleagues who were like blatant atheists, but they were still going through the routines. They thought that by still merging or blending in, that they were less conspicuous, even though the mind was already long gone. Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
It was a social thing, but it was also I didn't know what to do with myself, right? I had lived my whole life by these rules. I had set out my entire life course by this. What was I supposed to do? I didn't even know how to do my hair, right? So what was I going to do taking off my scarf? Um, but eventually that all faded away. But really the belief went first. The strong belief went first, and then it became weak belief, and then it became secular deism, then it became atheism. And then I stopped practicing all the rules. And even then, there are some things that I still have trouble with to this day. It's been 9 years, but there are some things that some instinct in me really just reacts against. So for people who say, oh, it's just teenage rebellion and you don't want to believe in the rules or whatever, I say, well, how do you explain almost a year of being a Muslim atheist? You know, there's no, that's not what it was. And even then, you can point at believers who don't practice their faith. You know, how can you say that they're sincere
That's
believers?
actually a very good point. That's a brilliant point. You're absolutely right. I mean, probably most of the Muslims that I know in real life are just cultural. I mean, they believe, but they also drink and they, you know, have sex and they, you know, I mean, so it's so if it's possible to be a Muslim and to still believe it, then and
Yeah.
break all the rules, then obviously this is not really about belief in God.
Yeah, to me,
You know, as the
when I was
operative
a
thing that
Muslim,
enables you to rebel.
yeah, and when I was a Muslim, I would look at Muslims around me and say, if you actually believe in Allah and in Jahannam, why would you believe that you can do all these things against the rules? Not little things, but I mean big things. To me, it seemed so ridiculous. If you actually believe in hell, why would you do these stupid things that will make you go to hell? Why wouldn't you follow, right? But, you know, belief is almost an affiliation for some people. It's like a gang affiliation. Like, I'm a Crip or I'm a Blood. I'm a Christian or I'm a
It's
Muslim.
identity politics or ego
Yeah.
politics or something. Internal identity politics or something.
Yeah, and they're too afraid of what might happen if they're not part of that group in some ways. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that whole you rebelled argument because it literally was not true for me. It was not true for me at all.
I
But
think
then
it's
I
pretty
compare it to a street gang where the behavioral patterns and the identifying patterns are being established by the group, and all you are doing is you're just sort of picking it up how the others behave and how you greet each other and how you talk to each other, what kind of vocabulary you're using. This is all determined by the street gang. And this is your peers which determine what it is that you think, what you're allowed to think, and how you're allowed to behave. And I see this very, very much present in Islam. That's why I compare it to a street gang.
I think what we're looking at here, the key thing here is community, and like you were saying before, Heina, I think it was a really key point when you left Islam. The people in the community were talking. There was pressure. It's a very communitarian religion. I think in its current manifestation, and so it's the community dictates. You know, so it's like being a Muslim is being part of this community. Leaving Islam is almost maybe like exiling yourself from your community. You know, and I think it's the same with it's exactly the same with Mormonism, for example. You know, so there's a lot of social pressure there, and I think that that community sense helps really generate that sort of identity politics thing.
You get that with in the U.S. I know anyway. You get that with ex-Mormons. You get that with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. You get that with ex-evangelical, especially ex-quiverful, and you get that from ex-Jewish Orthodox. You know, any religion where they feel sort of besieged as a community, like a minority, and they have this very strong group identity, leaving the religion is definitely equated with essentially rejection of who you are and who you were born to be.
Okay, but now if we come to the U.S. specific, do you feel that you are in a country, in an environment which is ultra religious, or where everybody asks you, yeah, but you need to believe in something, and if you tell them, no, I've abandoned all that, do you feel that as well?
Absolutely, all the time. And it's especially interesting because I live in California and we have a very large Hispanic Latino population. And so I'm brown, so they assume that I'm Latina, and they will, come up to me and ask me, what church do I go to? Like strangers will ask me, and my response will be none. My response is, I've never been to church. Why would I go to church? And then they're like, oh, so what are you? And I try to avoid the word atheist because as soon as you say atheist, then they get offended. They'll even say I'm offended just by you saying you're an atheist. So I avoid the question, but people are very persistent out here. And I'd say a big part of it is, we have the whole free market of religion. There's no state religion. So you have all these competing religions, a church on every block. That's American tradition. That's a very American thing.
Okay.
Okay, now instead of us picking your brain all the time, I think you've satisfied our immediate curiosity, what it's like to be an ex-Muslim. What is it that appealed to you the most in Islam? Because I always try and find something positive as well, because we're not only about bashing, I also try and find things which are good. What would you say appeals to you?
What appealed to me? Well, it always seemed like my parents were changing their mind, and the community is always changing their mind, and there was never a set sense of law and order and rules in my community. It was always flexible. People would say one thing and mean something else. Islam provided a very literal, very concrete set of guidelines to me. It was supposed to be eternal, unchanging. Allah's will is law. It was an easy way to order and structure my life and to be obedient, because like I said, I was very literal, very obedient person from birth. Not anymore, things have changed, but back then very much so. So the sort of the consistency of it, what I saw as the internal consistency. Also this idea of being part of a community and being part of a unified community, because I was always a social reject and kind of an outcast and a nerd and a dork and all that, but I used to fantasize about the fact that I was part of the Ummah. I was part of the world Muslim community. So even if the mean kids at my school rejected me, the Muslim kids, by the way, because I was at my Islamic school, even if they rejected me, I was still part of the Ummah. And that was very appealing to me, to be part of something that way, whether they liked it or not.
And that's what Klingschor just said, and that's actually, I think this is the strongest. This bond, I think, is the strongest factor that you have in Islam. I went yesterday again because sometimes when I visit, I've got nothing to do. All right, so then I go and go out to do things. And so the guy said to me, "Do you know that they have a stand here where they're distributing Qurans?" So I went there and had a chat with them.
You're such a masochist.
I know. I was so like riled up after like an hour, and they were so frustrated. The one guy was shaking in anger because he wanted to hit me, but he knew that he wasn't allowed to, and he was shaking. He was so furious. He was so like emotional, so intense that he couldn't answer because I showed him, look, this is what it says in the Quran. Yeah, this is what it says. These are the words. Go look it up. It's 151. Look at the words here. It says no, and there's no, not, and blah blah blah. And he couldn't do anything. Then they called the hit squad. So three guys came, big guys, burly guys, who tried to push me out, who tried to tell me to go and get lost. So it was real fun, looking at what the people are doing here. But the thing is that what can you do? I look at them, and they are really, I mean, it's half of them are really devout, okay? They actually believe this nonsense. They think that God is watching them 24/7, and whatever they do, they score their points, the 5 points for the prayer, or the 10 points for the prayer, and then this. They actually keep a score in their mind what they are doing. And this is how they organize their lives, and they feel part of this whole group. And then you have the others who say, we need to protect Islam from the outside, because it's under attack. There's a threat against Islam. And this is quite interesting to see. And the most interesting thing was, when I left, like after, I don't know, 1 or 1.5 hours, I turned around and there was the next stand, but now it was Christians. telling me that their God created the universe. Their God was watching everybody. And what the Islamic God, well, actually, it's sort of, and maybe like the same God, but not really. And this God is a bit of a different God. So, and with them, the conversation was quite pleasant. Theirs was more factual, and they were not so dogmatic. And this is what brings me to, they don't have these strict rituals in Christianity, because the Christian God understands all languages, so you can pray to him in any language. In the Islamic God, you can only pray in Arabic.
Well,
so there's a lot of differences between which I saw because they were next to each other.
Were they Protestant? Christian?
Yeah, Catholics are different.
Because I think Catholics, especially,
No, this
not
was
so
a
much
different
now,
sect.
because the church has kind of
They were like
transformed in the
Calvinists or
last few
something.
decades. But because I mean, Catholicism used to be extremely rigid, and still is to an extent. And you had to do all the rites in Latin and stuff, and so I think you could make some analog with old Catholicism, but that's even the thing. I remember chatting to some Americans, and they were telling me how, and she was from Central America. Like when I say Central America, I mean like the middle of the United States. What's it called? I'm not familiar with the regions. Is it Midwest or something? What?
Yeah, we call it the Midwest.
Okay, the Midwest. And there's a lot of Catholics there apparently. And she was this American girl was telling me how, and this goes back to exactly very similar to what you were saying before, Heina, how people get married really young because they just really want to have sex and they can't have sex outside of marriage. So you have all these Catholics who I think there are a lot of similarities you can find with the kind of pressures and factors.
Oh, absolutely.
With Catholicism.
Oh, and another thing, actually, I think that's important to bring up about why Islam and other religions can appeal is the sense of justice, I think, because it's very clear in our world that justice is not served. Horrible dictators who commit genocide die happy and warm in their beds surrounded by 100 wives and mistresses, and they're all fine. So this idea that justice will be served eventually in the afterlife is also very appealing. And in fact, a lot of relatives of mine, when they found out I was an atheist, they tried to convince me to come back to Islam based on that alone. The idea that it's compassionate to believe that there will be justice served. And my only answer to that is, that sounds nice, but is it true? So.
Yeah, the supernatural.
Well, exactly. I mean, but it's like, I don't like it when people die in a car crash. I guess they didn't die. So, there's no relationship between what you want to be true and the reality. I find that so strange. Yeah.
Okay, people are dying to talk to you. Should I open up the floor?
Yes, you should. Bring it on.
Sure. What would you say? Well, just to have another general topic in mind, whilst we wait for people to come in, what would you say are the differences between the Muslim community in the US and the Muslim community in the UK? I'll just quickly mention one thing that I'm aware of from having done some research before I hand it over to you. I know that, for example, Britain in particular, but this was a common trend in Europe after World War II, exploited a lot of their old colonies or countries with whom they had historic relations for cheap labour. And in the case of Britain, a lot of that cheap labour came from, I think, rural Pakistan and rural Bangladesh. And so, whereas in the USA, I think that the population of Muslims there were more people who migrated, so upper class, more professionals, people who could afford to, migrate to another country. So already you've got very different starting points for the different communities, which I imagine would impact.
Absolutely. Sociologically speaking, you see that the Muslim immigrants to the U.S. were much more educated, much more likely to know English, much more likely to already hold degrees to some capacity. These were not people immigrating out of desperate poverty, but people who wanted to make a better life, who already had a certain level of class status. And you see the way that American Muslims are, it pans out. We tend to be, I'm using we very loosely here because that's my background, I guess. But we tend to be more educated, men and women. We tend to be more likely to be professionals. We tend to be more likely to be assimilated, so not living in little enclaves, but we live with everybody else and go to school with everybody else. And there might be a mosque and a few Islamic schools, but that's not, we don't just stick there. We go outside of that for our jobs and our education and all that. And in fact, I saw a sociology paper presented when I was in college still about the fact that Muslim women and Arab American women tend to have very high education rates. Although they tend to not work, they tend to get married. Their education tends to be used as a bargaining chip for marriage, but not as a way to get a career. But still, that just speaks to a huge difference. In England, I noticed, in the part of London especially where I live, Walthamstow, I could go days without seeing a white person. It was all not only Muslims, but Muslims of my very specific ethnicity. So all Gujarati, Desi, Indian, and Pakistani, that's all I could see for days. So they tend to live in more concentrated areas. They tend to overtake the area, so the public schools are mostly with those people in them. They tend to go to Islamic schools. There's not a lot of drive necessarily for education. Even when that happens, they tend to work at an Islamic school or in some sort of Islamic capacity. So they tend to stay more within their communities because there's more of them living in one small concentrated area. And so there's less assimilation, there's less economic aspirations that happen. So yeah, assimilation just doesn't happen quite as much. And so I would say that's a huge difference I noticed.
But what's the term? Is it Londonistan or something? Is that a facetious term that people
call it that? Another thing I noticed, in the U.S., mosques always have a women's section. Even if it's crappy, there is a women's section. In the U.K., a lot of the mosques I went to did not have a women's section. And when I asked my cousin, she laughed and said the women were causing fitna.
So I guess that speaks to a more conservative environment.
But I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Pray in the street with my ass in the air? Like, is that more fair? I actually was pissed off about it because I'm like, we need a nice place to pray where our butts aren't in the air for everybody to see. Like, why don't we have a space for women? And she said fitna. I said, okay, so it takes two to tango, it takes two to fitna. What about the guys who were causing the fitna? Why aren't they being kicked out of the mosque? But of course, no, that's not how it works.
Have you ever come across people realizing that in some countries there are women who are leading prayers?
I remember when, who was it? What's her name? Amina Wadud. She did that in the US.
She's the African-American convert, isn't she?
Yeah.
Wrote something about the Quran and women, like trying to reinterpret it to be more.
Yeah, she interpreted it around with the feminist lens. Yeah.
Although I think she rejects the term Muslim. I think she rejects this designation of feminist. But
she identifies more as a womanist, which is like the more people of color friendly version of feminist, essentially. But yeah, she led a mixed prayer, which shocked everybody. But yeah, I have led prayer but only women, obviously. Well, not necessarily obviously, but in order to be traditionally Muslim, I led prayer, but I was only leading women. But yeah, in the UK, I found it to be very odd how they went about solving the woman fitna problem.
You mean they solved it by just banning them?
Yeah, just no women's section, none.
Yeah, but no women's section can mean that women can pray together. That means no, they can't.
Yeah, no, it was go pray at home or go pray on the street. I don't know.
Yeah, you need to point that out because I wouldn't understand it because I know because I was in KL in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia and there they have mixed mosques. Okay, so they have different. So you have different levels of prayers.
Now, are the women behind the men or off up the back or the top or are they? Because this is something I never understood.
At the back,
why can't you just? I understand the whole point of. If a guy is praying behind a woman and he'll see her ass, okay, great, and then he'll think about it, or even like so. Why? Fine, okay, granted. Let's grant that. why
No,
does
but you
women have to be
can't.
behind the men? Why can't you do it side by side? Why can't they be equally next to
Because
each
you
other?
might look at the side from the corner of your eye, of course.
But why don't you
No,
have a
but
partition?
no,
You
but
could
this
have
is
like
a
a little
weak
partition and still
excuse.
have them side by side.
Oh,
No,
it
Like
depends.
even
It depends on the mosque. Like in the U.S., like we have some mosques where like the partition's down the middle, and then the men are on one side, women are on one.
oh well, that's
It,
nice. That's better, I guess.
it depends. Sometimes it's women behind men if they don't have a proper partition. Like if they don't have a wall or a proper curtain, then they'll do women behind the men because then the women can still see the men, so we can't have them side by side. Some mosques they have a separate level or section entirely. One of my favorite mosques is in my hometown, and it's a very hip mosque. All the young people go there because the khatibs are very hip, and on Friday they're not boring and all that. And the women's section is basically an upstairs balcony that overlooks the men. And
Yeah,
I gotta tell
yeah,
you,
this in Asia a lot.
we had prime view of the men. It was very counterproductive to our prayer because we could see all the guys.
What did you have a competition? Who was in the first row on the balcony?
Oh yeah, that happened. I'm not even kidding. We had a
No,
whole
but the thing
ranking.
is,
We had a whole ranking system because the first gaze is for you, but the second gaze is haram. So we would like make sure and get a good first gaze in at these guys, and then we would decide, if they were Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, like that was our ranking system for the hot guys. Oh yeah, no, we would talk about whose beard is bigger and do we like bigger beards, smaller beards. You try to suppress this crap, but it still happens. It still
so
happens.
people will be people, and this is the whole point.
Well, we had to marry
This is the
somebody.
thing.
I
This is the
always
thing that
laugh
always
because
puzzled me.
in Doha, in Qatar, there's a shopping center which is built like a triangle. So what you see is actually a circumambulation. In other words, the girls, they walk counterclockwise and the guys walk clockwise. And they're always in groups and always like frantically typing away on their Blackberries and what have you. Now it's more Samsung. But it's quite funny how you see 15-year-old girls, all of course in their abaya and everything, but as loose as possible, walking around, and then you see stiletto heels coming out from underneath with diamond studs and stuff like that. And as soon as they pass a group of boys, it's like and the boys will go, yeah, man, and the typical mannerisms that you see. And they are walking around this triangle for hours and hours, and this is this is Fridays, you don't do it Saturday, or Thursday evening entertainment. This is what you see all the time.
When there's a will, there's a way, and when you're hormonal, there is always a will.
Yeah, this is something that I find very strange. Is
Like,
why do people bother with all the like the hijab? And it's just like the fake modesty. Like it's so contrived and it's so fake. Like heaps of Muslims commit zina. Like it's just like what I find it really strange because it seems so artificial.
Yeah, it is. It's essentially signaling a certain thing. And I would say that I'm careful to not single out the women for this because they're the ones who deal with the most rules. So of course they're going to break more rules because they're under more rules. And some of them will rationalize it various ways. They'll rationalize it in various ways. But for a lot of them, hijab is not necessarily their personal show of modesty. They're just trying to follow the rules so they don't get in trouble. So yeah, they're going to wear diamond-studded stilettos because that's their way of expressing their own sense of fashion and who they are and how to be attractive. And because how else are they supposed to do it, essentially?
the handbag. The handbag is the identifier.
I didn't do any of that stuff, but I was trying really hard to follow the rules more than I think should be expected of anybody.
Did you study the sort of traditional ulum ad-din, or sort of the so-called religious, I don't know why ulum for some reason is translated as sciences for some, but the sort of the traditional Hadith, Quran, interpretation, usul al-fiqh, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I can't say it was a complete study, but I did my best with what I had. I read as much of the Hadith as I could. I read the Quran with tafsir, a couple of different tafsir actually. I went to Islamic schools and during the day, and then also on weekends and evenings I would take extra classes. So I was trying to go through the traditional sources, but not being a native Arabic speaker, and my Arabic was only okay even back then, and being a woman also, so I couldn't, access the shuyukh directly a lot of the times. Like I couldn't just go up to the sheikh after and ask him questions. So I did my best with what I had essentially.
If you would go, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to taunt people and say, okay, why don't you go and call up Heina, go and debate with her and talk to her, so trying to get you into the UK circuit. What would you do? Because I've got somebody in the chat who's also thinking along the same lines. What would you do? How would you debate somebody? Because there's a woman in the UK, and she thinks the world of herself. She thinks the sun shines out of her every body opening. She used to be an actress, I think, and then she converted into Islam, and now she's a professional Muslim. In other words, she makes money by being a Muslim. How would you debate somebody like that? What kind of an opening would you have for somebody who was in the spotlight and then who went into this sort of less glamorous idea or concept of Islam?
Well, I would first point out that converts get the privilege of picking and choosing a lot more. So they will say, oh, this is true Islam, this is culture, and there is a bit of racism in that, oh, white Islam is better Islam, it's more pure, it's not based on culture. So I would probably be able to look up stuff that she's said or done or whatever and pick at her a little bit that way to sort of break it down a little bit. I would also question the fact that she's in the limelight because Islamically speaking, that's more than questionable for a woman to be in the limelight because, what if a man sees you and is inflamed beyond, all kinds of lust by you? There's...
What, she wears a hijab?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. I mean, at least as far as I understood, as a Muslim, I had an article about me when I was 12 years old in our town paper. I was on the cover of it, and I was in hijab and loose clothing, and I looked like the dorky kid that I was. And my grandmother was still upset because what if somebody saw the picture and was turned on? So, you never know. Yeah, no, I'm not even kidding you. This happened. Like, my grandmother called my mother in tears and said, why did you let her be in the paper? What if a man sees this and likes it? And I'm this gap-toothed 12-year-old with a hijab and long, ugly clothes. Like, no one was going to be turned on by that, I promise you. So you can call that into question because, how far does the modesty law go?
Yeah.
But I would also look up the things that she has personally said and look at, there's probably going to be a difference between what she thinks Islam is and how Islam actually is practiced in reality. And she just has this lovely ability to pick and choose and to take what she wants and make it nice. But, those of us who are born into it, those of us who come out of these communities, and especially people who live in countries that are dominated by Muslims, they don't get to have this lovely sunshine and rainbows Islam where they can just, take the nice stuff and ignore the bad stuff. It's not, that's what she gets to do as a Western woman, and that's really a product of sort of feminism and Western liberalism. It's not a product of Islam.
Yeah, but
I find it quite interesting.
By the way, let me just quickly say I have opened up the chat, so if somebody wants to join in and ask or comment or do something, you're welcome to do so. Just go to the Gin and Tonic Show, go to About, click on the live link, and then you will see a link there which gets you here on the show, and you can talk directly to Heina.
I find it quite interesting. There's such a rejection of quote unquote Orientalism, right? Of Western scholarship or the authority of basically, I guess, white, academia. But the moment you convert, it's the opposite. Suddenly you gain authority if you're white, and so you have this whole raft of pop Western converts to Islam who are basically, they attain celebrity status as these talking heads. In part, I think because they're white. They're
Oh yeah. It speaks, especially I would say in Desi Muslim communities, they love light-skinned people. Like they're very into that. So I feel like that's part of it.
You have this in Asia in general.
Yeah. I wrote about it once, about how annoying it is. You know, these people are... My mommy would even say to me, oh, converts are better Muslims because they chose Islam. And I remember thinking, man, I wish I was born Kafir so I could choose Islam and be a better Muslim, right? You know.
Oh, that's cynic. Okay, Mr. TJ, welcome. Come on, Klingschor, do your job.
Come on, Kling.
I'm sorry. I was taking the moment to quickly eat a sausage. I haven't eaten yet.
Sorry, I'm catching you out. This is the disadvantage of not having the video on. You can't see what people are doing.
It's better. I don't want you guys to see me eating.
Okay, TJ, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show.
Thank you very much.
We have a special guest. And okay, are you here to call the Gin and Tonic Show, or are you just here to call our lovely Heina?
Both actually, but I guess my first question, because I mean, me also being a Desi, I'm Punjabi, so I can concur with about 90% of what you just said, Heina. So I got to give you credit. Me being an ex-Sikh, I can definitely relate to about 90% of what you said. Just growing up in like a South Asian background, I think it's hard to break tradition in general. We're confined to a certain way of thinking, a certain way of doing things, and just being obedient to like our parents. I think those three things really do shape what we are and like how we're supposed to think. And when you break the mold, I think it can sometimes be really frustrating, but it can also be liberating at the same time. So,
yes.
I mean, from that aspect, I could definitely see it. But, I mean, I guess my first question would be, considering I guess I would call it the political aspects of Islam, specifically like when it comes to jizya and like, the caliphate and dhimmis and stuff like that, like, how were you taught about those things in general?
Honestly, we weren't taught a whole lot about it. I mean, most of what we were taught was that essentially that a caliphate, a proper Islamic state, would be better than this sort of aggressively militaristic and imperialistic capitalism in the United States. So we were taught that jizya was a humane alternative to the draft, and that zakat was the opposite of interest and taxes, in that it wasn't taking from the poor and giving to the rich, it was taking from the rich and giving to the poor. But we weren't taught a whole lot about what that would mean, because in the U.S. we're such a, I'm using we very loosely, but the Muslim community is such a minority, and especially such a hated minority since 9/11, that the idea of seriously considering what a Muslim state would be like was just beyond the pale. We just didn't really consider it too often.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of get like when I ask regular Muslims this question, some of them are really forthcoming with it, and then other people either just don't know or just don't care about it. So like I do run into various, I don't know, I guess you could say various answers to that question, because I feel like when I go back and read like actual classical texts and like older sources, I feel like you really find out like the real gist of it. Because for some reason, I don't know, I feel like Islam is like, I guess, been watered down today than to what it was.
I don't know if necessarily it's watered down. I think it's more that the context has shifted from a world where the Muslim world essentially was quite powerful and formidable and actually a threat to Western countries and things like that. But nowadays, nobody, my dad even says Muslim blood is cheap, right? Like, the Western world is really on top, and they're the ones with the bombs and the nukes and all that stuff. So I would say that, the focus has shifted from what is it like to be part of a superpower, or not necessarily a superpower, but just a powerful group of people to what is it like to be essentially not that powerful anymore. So I think because of that, the focus, of course, is going to change on what they care about and what they think about and talk about.
Interesting. I guess my second question, I guess, would be when it comes to now, how do you form your moral compass now? As like I mean, has anything changed from like what you thought before?
You can see my hair and my arms, so a lot has changed about my moral beliefs. And I was out and I had a drink with dinner, so again, these things have changed. Yeah, a lot has changed about what I consider to be moral. I feel like when I was a Muslim, my morality was really focused on you can't do this and you can't do that, and this is haram and that is not allowed and all that. You know, don't date, don't drink, don't smoke, don't look at boys too long. You know, they didn't say anything about girls. Maybe they should have for me. But you know, just things like that. That was the focus. Don't listen to music. Now I feel like I care more about humanistic ethics, and so, you know, it's a quintessential question that is brought up. Where do atheists get your morals? And to me, the answer is, well, everywhere, all sources. You know, I look at sociology, biology, history, different religions, and all that, and I try to figure out what makes sense given the evidence that we have. And it's not a quick or easy answer or quick and easy process. I'm still working on my morality. There are questions I don't have an answer to, but I guess part of it is being more comfortable with uncertainty too. Realizing that I don't have all the answers and that the answers aren't always forthcoming, but I can try to do my best every day.
Yeah, for me it was different. I think for me, I don't know, like I mean, obviously reading, like, you know, because obviously once you abandon faith, like I think that philosophy becomes like the real, you know, like, you know, the real comfort, or like the real answer to things. And like for me, I don't know, I mean, as you can tell by like my screen picture, like you know, Nietzsche really actually appealed to me. And people have like this, I don't know, negative opinion of Nietzsche because they think of him as like this, like, you know, proto-fascist type of thinker.
He was.
I mean,
I don't know. I was a philosophy major, so I understand the impulse, definitely. Like, I was a philosophy major, and I did most of my studies in ethics because I became an atheist, because I really wanted to find answers. So yeah, I get it. I get you.
wait, Jin, how come you said that? Like, sorry, like, you know, you were saying that, you were saying that, you know, Nietzsche was actually like, you know, a fascist thinker.
I thought he was quite despotic, yes.
I don't know. I think it had a lot to do with his sister. You know, truth be told.
Okay, all right. I didn't major. I just took a couple of courses, and I thought, what a repulsive bastard. How could anybody think so much about himself, and why does everybody appreciate him so much? I thought he was a bastard.
I don't know. For me, at least, like focusing on, like, you know, this postmodern age. I mean, I don't think any single philosopher in, like, the, you know, quote unquote, like, you know, postmodern age has had more, you know, actual, I guess, influence upon, like, the Western world. I mean,
okay, yeah, but it's the same thing with Newton. I mean, he was also an arsehole, all right? But look at the influence he's had. So you need to split between the influence between the good things and clever and wise things that they contributed, and their personalities, which can be quite different, I suppose.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go home now, to not at home. So I'm gonna drop out for a few minutes. I'll rejoin you, hopefully in like 15 minutes or something. Okay.
You will be sorely missed.
Yes. Well, sorry guys. Sorry to do this. All right. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
You know, you just made a point which I found interesting with the morality. What are the sources for morality? And you said, well, any which way you can, and that is exactly it. Because if people come to me and they say, well, look, where does morality happen? I say, well, look, my problem at the moment with morality is stem cell research. How far are you allowed to go? What are the limits? How much are you allowed to clone? How much are you allowed to use? What part of a human being can you use to reproduce other parts? Now, that is where I am working on myself. Now, how the foof does Islam help you with this?
I know, right? Okay, so this is stem cell research is my favorite example to demonstrate why
Oh, shit, now
Qiyas
I've pushed
is
a button.
ridiculous. Can you hear me?
I said now I pushed a button because I can hear. Now you're getting passionate. Wonderful.
No. I love bringing that example up because I love bringing up how ridiculous Qiyas is, the analogical reasoning. Like, how the hell are you supposed to analogize from, 1,000 years ago theology to stem cell research? It's completely ridiculous. And yeah, especially in the U.S., I'd say one of the things that I have argued with for 10 years now, it started in my biology class in high school, and I still argue about it to this day. It's the patenting of genomes sequences. Because in the U.S., we love our capitalism, we love our free market.
Sick. Yeah.
Yeah, so they patent the sequences of your genome, like, that are in your body. So how is that moral or ethical? So these are things that, Islam doesn't really help you much with. So you're on your own for that anyway. So you might as well look at different sources, and figure it out. Even if you're a Muslim, I think.
TJ, do you have a take on that?
Actually, from what I understand, I think it's in the Hadith, the soul doesn't enter until like day 40 or something like that. I think it was.
Okay, have you tried it? Yeah, I used to try to argue that when I was a Muslim feminist. I know, right? Don't laugh. When I was a Muslim feminist, I tried to argue that very early term abortion was okay because of that.
Hmm.
But nobody agreed with me. Literally nobody agreed with me. So.
And let's not forget, like, the United States Constitution was actually written by Jesus. If you've seen that picture before, so. But it's just the Christian, I don't know, like, domination. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. It's like, I understand. Constitutionally, this country is secular, which is great, but like demographically is where it really takes hold, because most people believe in the Christian God, and obviously my first question to those people is, how can you believe in such a prick? But apart from that, it's you can just see its stranglehold on society.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And how it's retarding our society to such a great degree, and it just really pisses me off sometimes, that these people...
I'm with you there, because, I'm all about the reproductive rights and things like that, and that's been taking a huge hit lately, and that's definitely it's religion's fault. It really is. There's no other reason why people would be opposed to things like birth control. It's ridiculous. And although, you made the joke about the Constitution being written by Jesus, I feel like America's religiosity affects the way that they approach this secular document, which is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They approach it like it's a religious text, like we must follow it to the letter. They forget that the Bill of Rights was a list of amendments. And the point is that the Constitution can be amended to reflect modern times. But they don't want to do that because they think it's like the Bible and you have to interpret it and follow every word of it. But that's a whole topic for something else. But that's my crackpot theory about the problem with American approaches to the Constitution.
Yeah, like when I first saw that picture, I was just laughing my ass off. I guess,
Yeah.
Like Jesus holding it up and just pointing it to it. I'm just like, oh, when was this? Like,
it's a joke.
Sorry.
I was just gonna make the joke that they joke that if English was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me.
But if you look at the Constitution in the U.S. and you look at Sharia, what is the take of Americans concerning Sharia? Do they understand anything about that?
No, they're just scared. There are random states and cities and counties in the Midwest of the U.S. where there's like no Muslim population that have passed resolutions against Sharia, even though there's nobody trying to implement Sharia. But they're so scared of the brown hordes coming and implementing Sharia, they have passed laws. This is what state funding is going towards, passing laws against Sharia in places where nobody wants Sharia.
But what do they see Sharia as being?
The brown people wanting to chop off their hands and cover up their women.
Well, that's what Sharia is. It says, no. Okay.
It's the penal code, right?
Yeah.
It's the penal code.
But you know what my fear is? My greatest fear is they'll stop being scared of Sharia and realize how much they have in common, and they gang up on us, and then we're all screwed.
But it's quite funny how many people actually use the word without really understanding what it's all about. And they always say, yeah, well, we need the Sharia. I said, well, what part? Give me what is Sharia? Give me an example. And they can't. They are unable to provide any kind of example what would be in the Sharia, because they always say, well, Sharia are the rulings of the Sharia courts. I cannot do that. I cannot get involved. It's for the scholars to decide what is Sharia and what is not. They don't understand that they are part of Sharia, and they need to worry about it because they can be influenced by it. It's always funny to see how Muslims react to Sharia.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? What do you like talking about? What is it? Because you said that you were quite passionate about some topics, and one of them was morality. What do you normally talk about there?
I talk about morality. I talk about gender a lot, because I can't really. Although sexism was not why I left Islam, it's definitely part of it. So I can't necessarily disentangle my atheism from my belief in gender equality. They're very closely related. I also talk about LGBT issues because I am queer identified. So I talk about that because obviously being a Muslim and being queer was not easy. It was not fun.
Oh my goodness, you've sinned double here.
What?
You're a double sinner.
Yeah, no, I like girls and boys. So, yeah, and as a Muslim, I honestly I believed that everybody had gay thoughts, but you just had to suppress them. But then I found out that there are straight people and they don't have these thoughts. So I thought, oh, man, you know.
But do you talk amongst Muslim girls?
Not much anymore. I mean, I don't really have a lot of Muslim friends anymore.
Well, I mean, in those days.
Oh yeah, I did. And I'd go to these all women's parties where these girls would have their hijabs off, and the Arab girls especially would be dressed really kind of sexy, and they would all be belly dancing with each other, and I'd be sitting in the corner. I'd keep my scarf on, and I just watch them like I don't understand how you guys are not getting turned on.
So you were the only one drooling.
Well, I don't know. As far as I knew, I mean, I was uncomfortable. I wasn't drooling. I didn't understand what was going on with me. All I knew is that I was uncomfortable. So
but you don't talk about this. You don't talk about other girls openly and say, listen, doesn't that turn you on or something?
No way.
Because men have a lot of homosexual encounters due to the fact that they're not allowed to sleep with girls.
I mean, I don't know. I've heard things from other women, but I was too shy and awkward. I still am, but I was too shy and awkward to really try anything. So I would just watch these girls dancing and think, oh wow, I feel uncomfortable, but I don't know why I feel uncomfortable. And I think part of it too in Islam is that there's no addressing of the female sex drive. It's all men. Men are lustful. Women need to cover up because men have giant boners all the time. I don't know, but women, there's no addressing of, oh, women might be turned on by men or women might be turned on by something. Nobody talks about that. So I didn't understand that I was being turned on and that was my orientation. All I understood was that I felt uncomfortable. And when I realized that it was my sex drive, I didn't know what to make of it. I thought I was some kind of freak because, there was no, like I said, addressing of that in Islam. So I thought, oh, there must be something biologically wrong with me. I need to see a doctor or something. That I have a sex drive, right? But
that's interesting. I've never heard this aspect before. Amazing.
Yeah, no, I think that was a big part of it, and so yeah, I do talk about that now a lot because I just didn't get it, and I'm still not I'm out to my family about being an atheist, but I still haven't come out to them about being queer. There's no point really.
Oh,
nothing good will come of it. If they Google me, they'll find it. But if they're not looking, they're not going to find it.
I always get amazed how people complicate their lives.
It's not complicated because even if I date a guy, I don't take him home to meet my family. So if I date a girl, I wouldn't take her home either. So
No, I'm not talking about you. I mean, you seem pretty relaxed about anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But the way that you need to be, like, you need to tiptoe around all these issues that other people have. Because I don't have an issue. I mean, I had like an on and off partner, and then she came to me and said, "Okay, yeah, we can carry on, but I'm actually more into lesbian now." And I said, "Well, that's cool, you know." And then she actually brought her friend along, and you know, everything is easy. Whatever, you know, it's consensual, and then it's fun, and that's it. End of story. But a lot of people make it their problem about other people's sex lives, and this I don't understand.
Yeah, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, recently, like, I discovered that because, you know, there's fewer women who like women in this world than men who like women. So there've been more men in my life than women. But recently, you know, I went out with this girl and she kissed me in a restaurant, and you know, you could tell people were looking like, oh, they're girls. What are they doing? You know. But, you know, there were straight couples in there completely making out and feeling each other up, so I don't know what their problem was. But their problem is really that, you know, why would they do this? You know, what's wrong with them? But
okay, I must admit, I'm a little bit old-fashioned too, because, well, maybe because I'm straight. I can handle two girls. I can't handle two girls making out like heavy, but seeing two guys kiss, sorry, I'm not there yet.
I think that's just sort of the homophobia that's in society, though. Like, we're all brainwashed into it. Like, this idea that, like, oh, men are just, ew, why would you want to see that? And this sort of fetishization of women. Two girls is hot, two guys is gross. Even though, you know, the number one kind of porn that straight women like to watch is gay porn.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the statistics do not lie on this. Like, I've been looking at them. Because I have an interest in these things, obviously. So, you know, I look at this stuff, and, yeah, you know, just like a lot of men like to watch lesbian porn, a lot of straight women like to watch gay porn, but because men are assumed to be the dominant, you know, opinion of society, two men together is supposed to be gross. Although that is becoming a little bit different, and that's been heartening to see. And, you know, I personally, like, if I find out a guy is homophobic in any way, I will not consider him in any way, because to me, it's like, okay, so you don't like two girls, or you like two girls but not two guys. What's the difference? You know, why are you against my brothers in homosexuality? So, you know.
So why is it different then?
Because, like, we fetishize women in society. Like, women are supposed to be beautiful and
I'm
sexy.
indoctrinated?
Yeah, you are. We all are, right?
I'm not the free thinker that I thought I was?
We all are indoctrinated a little bit. Come on.
Oh,
it's okay to admit it. But it also has to do with the fact that I feel like straight men are used to being catered to. So, like, if you don't find something arousing, you expect for everybody else to find it gross. Whereas for me, like, there's plenty of things I don't want to see, but whatever.
No, I'm okay. No, I'm easy. I mean, I don't care what other people do. I don't care about that. It's just, I don't like it in my face.
Well, you know, but if you see if you have an equal problem with a heterosexual and two women couple, you know, doing their thing, if you're just a prude, that's okay. And
yeah, I'm just a prude. No, I don't like heavy. I don't believe in pitting in public. All right. If you want to have an orgy, then go and do it at home, or if you're going to want to go skinny dipping in the pool with everybody, that's fine, but not in public.
I agree, but I mean, like, a quick kiss in public, I don't think is that.
No, I'm not talking about that.
Okay, that's not. I wasn't sure what you were talking about, but yeah, it depends. I think.
I'm talking heavy.
Yeah, no, that I think, get a room, guys. You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Or something, but I joked one time.
Sorry, TJ, I'm leaving you out here completely. What is your opinion on this? What is morality?
Well, I mean, before I became an atheist, I mean, obviously, you know, within the Punjabi community, we don't really talk about this stuff, so. For me, it was like completely taboo. Now it's just like whatever, I don't care. Like, just look at the history of homosexuality. Like, it's as old as humanity itself almost. You know, so for me, it's not really that big of a deal. I don't care what you do behind closed doors. Even the making out in public is just like, I mean, you just, I don't know, you just walk away from it or you just look away. I mean, for me, it's like whatever. Like, it's a free country, man. Do whatever you want if you're not harming anyone. You know.
One time I joked. So one of my cousins, he posted something about how gross it was that gay people now feel empowered to kiss in public and hold hands. Oh, that's so disgusting that they kissed and held hands. But he posted a picture of his wife's ultrasound when she got pregnant. And I didn't say this to him, but I told my friends about it. And I'm like, how disgusting is that they had sex without a condom, and they're showing me what happens when you have sex without a condom? They're showing me inside her body.
Okay.
Like, how that's disgusting to me. Like, why would you show me the inside of your wife's body to show, oh, we had unprotected sex? Like, good for you. You know? Like, how is that not disgusting?
Double standard, right?
Yeah, it totally is. And obviously, I don't have a problem with people posting ultrasound pics. My friends do it all the time. But my point was to point out, like, the double standard, exactly.
So then, while we're on the topic, how do Muslims hook up? I mean, you don't see the girl. How does that happen?
On the down low, my friend. On the down low. That's how it happens.
Oh yeah. Oh no,
Trust me.
I know Muslims who date and stuff. They meet from the Muslim Students Association. They meet at the masjid. They meet, they find, when there's a will, there's a way, and they find a way. And nowadays with technology, they can have the disposable cell phone they bought, and they can text that way, or they can email or something. There are lots of people in our community who have dated for many years, and then they get married, and everybody pretends like, their wedding night's going to be their first time, even though everybody knows that's not true.
Okay. Last week, there was a news item which I found, I mean, it's hysterical on the one side, but it's actually horrific on the other. That in Indonesian army, if you are a female recruit, a doctor actually comes and does the so-called two-finger test to check whether your hymen is intact.
No.
That is so gross, eh?
Yeah,
okay,
I heard about that.
And not only that, but
does that still happen?
It's such a myth, though, because the hymen, because first of all, the scientific term now is vaginal corona. That's what we call it. And
Oh shit!
yeah, no, I'm not kidding.
But I drink Corona.
But that's the term for it, and the idea is that it's not some kind of tamper-evident seal. It's not some. It doesn't pop up when you open the jar. Like it's a part of your body that stretches and moves and changes, and the bleeding from the first time having sex is not from tearing the hymen. That's a myth. It comes from usually anxiety, and it could be for some people from the tearing or the rupturing of it. But you don't pop it, you don't lose it. And so this idea that, you can check someone and see that they're a virgin or not is a medical myth anyway, in the first place. And, I one of my fellow bloggers, well, she's leaving Free Thought Blogs, she's focusing on other stuff, but she blogs at Between a Veil and a Dark Place on the Free Thought Blogs network, and she actually was subjected to one of these, and she wrote about going through a virginity test. And at the time, she had never had sex. She was actually, a virgin, had never had sex. And it was traumatizing. It was essentially medical rape. And so the fact that they're doing this to these women, especially, it's just disgusting.
It is. But now, where do you think this obsession with virginity comes from in Islam?
It's the obsession that goes back to all the Abrahamic faiths. They're obsessed with paternity, I think. Like, they're obsessed with this idea that, first of all, that a penis is so important that if a woman has it inside her, it changes who she is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how important the almighty phallus is, that if a woman has had it inside her, she goes from a virgin to a non-virgin to something else. So there's this obsession. And then there's the obsession with paternity where, if a woman has had sex, maybe she could be carrying a child that isn't yours, and then you will give your inheritance to a child that is not yours. It's this power and control stuff, and not consensual or sexy, just imposed by society. It's obviously not limited to Islam. It's in many, many, many other cultures and faiths, but Islam particularly goes out on it, I think, because the rules are so codified and strict in the first place.
There might be an analog to make with what's that ultra-Orthodox Judaism called? Haredi ultra-Orthodox Judaism. It's very similar like that, where they place such a strict emphasis on rules, and because the rules are so very detailed in their articulation, that there's a salient clash. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm back. Hey guys, what did I miss?
Jump right back in. But yeah, it's this obsession with property and I think control that sort of brings this obsession.
But do you still see this as being present today in Islam, that men have this property feeling?
Yeah, I mean, they'll say things like, you see these people like Zakir Naik and all those awful people will say things like, or even some of the less crazy ones, they'll say things like, look at your women, you let your women go on TV half naked, and how is that okay? Yeah, we cover our women, but as if women don't even have any agency or any say in this, It's all men who allow women to do one thing or another.
This is why I like Richard Dawkins. I mean, Richard Dawkins doesn't get angry a lot, but here he exploded once in somebody's face. I remember that.
Yeah, no, it's...
On that issue. Although I personally, I've got to say, I don't like Richard Dawkins very much. But
yeah, that's a whole other podcast, right?
But yeah, this is quite interesting, the way that it's almost like women only exist relative to men. And you see this particularly, say, in the Quran and in the Bible as well, with the female characters there. And this is like a more subtle kind of, I don't know if misogyny is the right term, but far more subtle gender stereotyping or gender role casting.
It's the removal of female agency.
Yeah. Mary's the only woman mentioned by name in the whole Quran, for example. And she's only really notable in relation to Jesus, who is her son. Or most of the female characters, they are there to somehow facilitate men, essentially.
Yeah. And you see that even...
Oh, sorry, continue.
I was just going to say that almost set a pattern, because you even see that in modern media and storytelling, where, female characters are just sort of ancillary. They're facilitating the plot or men's development. And I feel like that can be traced all the way back to the Quran, and before that, obviously, to the Old Testament.
Well, I think these are really seminal texts in dictating sort of cultural norms, if they're texts.
That's why I hate the campaigns that say that you should respect women because they're somebody's daughter or somebody's wife or somebody's mother, or somebody's sister. Why not respect women because they're people also? Not because they're somebody's daughter or somebody's wife. Like, who cares about all that? Like, why can't they just be a person? But anyway, continue, sorry.
The other function, if they're not there simply to facilitate a narrative of a seminal male character, in the Quran in particular, because that's what I'm most familiar with, because I researched it recently. The only exception is if women are there in some sort of domestic setting, right? As a, you know what I mean, like as a wife or whatever. So it's the same kind of thing, really.
Yeah. There's no agency afforded to them. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do we have any other? Have we had any other questions? Like, are you keeping an eye on the comment section? Stop. I bet Stop's gone to get coffee right now. He's running back to the computer. Guys, so sorry. I'll check the comment section. See if there's anyone's got any queries or questions. Have you guys touched upon sort of ex-Muslim feminism yet? Because that's another interesting one.
Oh no, we haven't really gotten there yet. No.
I think that's also worth exploring.
Oh yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing how overall in secularism and atheism in the West especially, it's very male-dominated. It's male-led, male-started, all that. But with ex-Muslim communities, there's a lot of prominent women. And it's not just that there are women leaders, but there are a lot of women who are members. So I see more gender equality in ex-Muslim communities than in mainstream secular communities. And that's been great. It's not just great because, it's good for me, but it's good to see that, there are clearly men and women who are rejecting Islam and who are coming together and supporting each other in that. So I think that it's really interesting how that has happened. And I'm really happy to see how it's going to go.
Was that all you have to say about feminism? Come on.
Oh, well, outside of the ex-Muslim community, I have a lot to say. Of course I do.
No, because this is an interesting topic to see. How do you see the empowerment? Because, come on, women in Islam is probably the worst thing that you can have. So
yeah.
How do you see the development? How do you see how women are taking control? How do you see, on the other hand, the completely subdued woman who says, "Oh, I put on the hijab with pleasure and with love in my heart"? How do you see this huge conflict there?
I don't necessarily see it quite as being subdued, because in the West, wearing hijab in a lot of ways is very different from when in countries where you're forced. Because to me, I looked around me in the Western world and I saw women who were slaves to diets and hair products and makeup and you name it, all these things. So to me, wearing hijab was a way of being freer than them. It was a way of saying, well, I don't have to be a slave to the treadmill and the calorie counter. I can wear my scarf and I can be hairy and fat if I want because I'm covered. You know, it felt like a very nice alternative. And you know what? Yeah, obviously I realized that I was submitting to another beauty standard, the Islamic one. But taking off hijab, I suddenly had to deal with these things. You know, I suddenly had to deal with the fact that, you know, people were judging me based on how I dressed in a non-obvious way. There's all these subtle rules. You know, you have to dress revealing, but not too revealing. You know, you have to be pretty, but not too pretty. You have to, you know, all these ridiculous things. And so, you know, I reject those standards as well. But you know, I wouldn't say necessarily that I was a subdued person when I wore hijab, because I wore it with pleasure, because to me it was a big middle finger to what I saw around me in the rest of Western society for women. And
I think that's quite common, actually. So it's not, people often misunderstand, especially in the West. Often these Muslim girls, their parents or their parents' generation had to fight for the right not to wear the veil or the head covering, but the more recent generation choose to do it. So I think it's a very much post 9/11 phenomenon as well. It's sort of like it's an identity politics thing. So it's a way of showing your allegiance, showing your pride vis-a-vis, you know, a hostile society. So I think that's a really important factor.
And to me, it was standing up to women being subdued. Because to me, you know, starving yourself and constantly exercising. Because I grew up in Southern California, too, where I live now. So the emphasis on looking a certain way is very strong here. Flat ironing your hair and all these things. And to me, that seemed ridiculous, and I didn't want to participate in it. And I don't now, but I don't wear hijab either. So I don't think it's quite that simple. And so that level of defiance and that level of wanting to create my own life and my own standard for the way I looked is something that hasn't changed at all from when I was Muslim. It's simply I no longer follow Islam's rules, and I sort of come up with my own independently, as opposed to following Islam's rules to rebel against Western society's rules.
I think that's a very important point, that you are saying I can now come up with my own set of rules, and that is what I call the empowerment, and this is what I'm after. Do you see that women today, Muslim women, are actually capable of doing so, and do they want this?
I think they already do it by redefining hijab. You know, if you ask most women in the West why they wear hijab, they're not going to tell you, oh, to prevent men from lusting. They're going to say to be free of beauty standard or to be independent or all these things. So they're already redefining what it means in that context. And, you know, you see Muslim feminists, I know everybody wants to laugh at that term, but they do exist, and they're essentially trying to remake these narratives and reshape these things to fit them. And, you know, whether or not you think they're theologically sound, they're still doing it. And so they're already doing it, and a lot of them are, you know, doing that sort of exercise, even if it doesn't make them atheists necessarily, it does bring them further away from just complete subdued submission to male ideals. So it's already happening, I think.
Come on, now you've gone totally bonkers. What is a Muslim feminist?
is somebody who picks and chooses the nice gender stuff from Islam. Just like, all the Muslims pick and choose, right?
Yeah.
A Muslim feminist picks and chooses things that make sense in terms of gender equality. And instead of, whatever else. Because all the Muslims pick and choose. None of them follow everything. They try, but they're never going to.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, that is not what I call a feminist, all right? It's a very docile way that...
But who are you to... Who made you the god of feminism? Come on. Honestly, I get along with some of them better than some atheists who are against gender equality, Because they're for gender equality, and they may frame it using Islam, but at least they're on the right side of things, and they're fighting for the right things. But I meet some atheists who thinks that women should shut up and get back in the kitchen or suck their cocks, and I'm not on their side,
I've had that experience. I have a Muslim friend who, it was like that. It was I guess you could say feminist, and I found myself, and on a lot of issues, not just that, she's also just generally quite an intelligent person. I agree with her more than I agree with most atheists on most issues, probably. So it's and I think that actually, for me, what's really important is the social stuff. Mm-hmm. It is the women's rights. It is gay rights. It is. So I don't really care what people's religion is. So I think that there's absolutely, I would have, more in common with a Muslim feminist than I would with some conservative atheist. Because I would see myself on the team with the Muslim feminist. I'm not on the team with the conservative atheist. So I think that makes perfect sense.
And I like the idea of, yes, spreading more knowledge and getting more people to think outside the box and leave religion if that's what they want to do. But I also like the idea of sort of taking religion more in that direction of, okay, they sound silly to us that they're ignoring half their religion, but at least they're ignoring the icky parts, right?
Yeah, but that's like Quran and Islam version 2.0.
It's better than 1.0, though.
Exactly. But this is what I'm always saying. I mean, they need the reform. They need reformation. They need to go through the transition because they're stuck in the 7th century and that doesn't work today. So they desperately need to either advertise or go under because it's crazy.
And maybe I'm optimistic here, and maybe I'm playing to the crowd a little bit here, but I feel like the first step, if you look at historical Reformation movements in various religions, the first step is you have a bunch of people leaving. So.
Oh, really?
Well, if you think about it, the Catholic Church was way worse before the Protestant Reformation, right? But
they weren't leaving.
Huh?
Were they leaving?
Well, Protestants left the Catholic Church and made their own.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's what I mean. They were protesting. Protesting against Catholicism.
Yeah. And to me, it's so what happens is when you have people leaving religions, the people in those religions look at their own faith and go, oh shit, we're losing followers, we need to leave, we need to figure out why they're leaving and fix it. And I'm not saying that that's happening on a large scale yet, but I feel like that's going to happen. I'm already seeing it on a community and personal level. I've seen people in my own family become more accepting and become more open-minded and become less, fascist about their practice of Islam because they assumed that I left Islam because it was too repressive. That's not true, but I'm okay with them thinking that because they have become far less strict with their children. They let their children have more freedom, and they stop being so discriminatory. I'm okay with that. If I can do some good in this world that way, that's fine.
Well, I see it in Indonesia where people prefer Lady Gaga to Fatima.
Oh, Lady Gaga, with her burqa wearing.
Okay, now we've exhausted sex, we've exhausted all morality issues. What is left to talk about in Islam? Okay, what is your take on violence? What is your reaction to Islam is the religion of peace?
Okay, I feel like when Muslims in the West say that, it's a defensive reaction to being demonized. They're not seriously speaking, no religion is a religion of peace. They have violent aspects to them. All of them do. But a lot of the times in the West, when American Muslims say Islam is a religion of peace, they're fighting against, these American Taliban these Christian right who are saying all Muslims are evil and violent and are going to behead you. So they say, oh, Islam's a religion of peace, to sort of be defensive against that. The ones who aren't in the West, I think, have this very bizarre agenda where they think that peace is through submission to the sword of Islam. And that is obviously kind of more than a little bit frightening.
But does that work? What kind of an impression does the U.S. citizen have when the Muslim comes and says, well, it's a religion of peace? Will they accept it, or will they be a little bit skeptical, or will they say, well, maybe it does make sense that only 300 million people are violent, the others are all totally, completely, utterly peaceful?
It depends. You know, the U.S. is a big country. People forget that, I think, sometimes. You know, if you think about the European Union and all the different little countries in it, that's how the U.S. is, except our government, our central government is like in terms of size, our states are like countries, almost, in terms of how big they are, you know. So it depends on where you go and who you talk to. You know, if you go to certain parts of the country where they've never met a Muslim, they have only white people in their little small town, and maybe 2 black families or something, you know, they may not accept that, oh, Islam, when they say it's a religion of peace, they'll say, oh, you're lying. Some of them may research it in other places. I think it really depends on where you're at, because, you know, it's such a big country. And there's so many different views on things and all that.
It's not like the way the blacks were seen like 50 years ago, is it?
It can't be, because there just aren't enough Muslims around.
Yeah, okay, that's also true, yeah.
Yeah, there were more African Americans in the U.S. than Muslims by far. So
interestingly, though, Islam was initially identified with African Americans because of groups like the Nation of Islam.
Oh yeah, that's how America.
It was pretty interesting. Yeah, pretty interesting phenomenon. Sort of black national. But I found the arguments quite funny, though. I think the sentiment was something like Christianity is the religion of white people, you know, the slave thing, so we should convert to Islam, which actually has the exact same history of taking slaves out of Africa, but just in the opposite direction. Like, it always puzzled me that complete lack of historical research. Like,
but that's not why people gravitate.
You could have chosen any religion. They could have chosen Buddhism.
Do you really think that's why people gravitate towards social movements, is because of historicity? No. People gravitate towards things because they're appealing, because they're different.
Yeah. Oh, Muhammad's friend was an Ethiopian guy, Bilal. Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess Islam empowers everyone equally. Like, but yeah.
What, awkward silence? Come on, people.
Oh, sorry, my
topic at the moment. I thought this was really fascinating to have somebody here who can really talk about the everyday life, what a Muslim does, and then leave all that behind. And now we have awkward silence. This is unbelievable. Green Soul Sufi. Oh, we have a Sufi here. Great.
Hey, how you doing?
Well, and yourself? Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We have Klingschor is a little bit handicapped today. I have no idea why. So, welcome to Gin and Tonic Show. Are you here to talk to us or to our special guest today?
I just came in, so I don't know who the special guest is.
Okay. We have somebody from the States where it's actually early in the morning, so kudos to somebody who stays up so late at night. And she is an ex-Muslim, and she has agreed to come on the show and share her experiences with us from a little bit from a philosophical point of view, so to make us understand what it's like to be an ex-Muslim in the States. Where are you from? Do you have any kind of on Islam?
I'm actually from the East Coast by NYC, so it's pretty early in the morning. So my experience was kind of different because I was born here in the United States. So I'm actually a convert. I've been a Muslim for, let's say, about like 14 years.
Okay, so you went the opposite way around. Then
Correct.
the obvious question is, what made you convert to Islam?
Rumi.
Well, were
is
you
quite
always
common,
somebody who
actually.
believed in a god? Did you always think a god was necessary in this universe, and then it was just for you to choose which one, or how did this work?
Well, I was really searching. I think I always believed in the God. I think there was a point where I didn't think otherwise, but the whole point of God was never an issue with me in the sense that to believe it or not to believe it. I was just looking for
Well,
a spiritual
obviously,
path for
because you're
myself.
wearing a Grateful Dead T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I like them. I'm still me. So.
Okay. Okay, and then what made you decide on Islam?
Well, I went to a spiritual retreat with a bloody order. Ever since then, I just fell in love with it, and I just kept going.
When you say you fell in love with it, what is the it?
Oh, the Malevi order. There was a retreat, and I went to, and there was a couple people who were Muslims. Some were not, and that whole community of, I have never experienced it, but there was a lot of things that kind of led up to that progression because I had a lot of friends who were Muslim and still am, and just looked at their character, looked at the way they treated others, and I was really attracted to it. And I couldn't, there was a couple, I actually went to a Salafist mosque one time, and I didn't like it too much. I was not really into it. It was very dogmatic, very strict. But, I found this poet, and I found a couple people who actually shared those ideas, and here I am.
But you follow the flavor of Sufi, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
The Mev Levy, was it?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Whirling dervishes.
Can you explain to other people who are watching the Gin and Tonic show at the moment, what about Sufism appeals to you most as opposed to what you mentioned, the Salafis?
Well, it was, I guess, more liberal, but it was more the sense of the practice and the meditation practice and the poetry of love and all that mushy stuff, I guess. But I really enjoyed it, and to this day, I really do. I think what the other mosque, they were very us against them type of deal, like. We have the truth, and everybody around outside is basically heretics. So I didn't like that message at all. And they were very nice. There was a lot of that mosque had converts, but the message itself was very unappealing.
Okay, I get that. Heina, would you like to ask a question?
Oh, not right now. Oh, me? Okay.
I don't know. I guess that all sounds really nice, but I mean, you do know that most Muslims would not consider you to be a true Muslim for many reasons, right? You do understand that.
Correct. Yes.
So what makes you right about your religion and them all wrong? All of them.
I don't say I'm right. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, you have to believe that you're right on some level, right? That you're going to not the Salafi mosque, but your mosque, and you're practicing Islam the way you feel is right, right? You don't think you're wrong necessarily. You think you could be wrong, right? But that's different.
Wrong. Yes.
You wouldn't operate with a wrong premise intentionally, right? So
no,
I don't know. That's my trouble with converts who go to Sufism, because you're essentially saying, okay, my nice love-based Islam is the right one, and then all these people who are more fundamentalists or more whatever, they're all just too harsh in my Islam. So I guess it's nice that you had that luxury to choose that, but I mean, I guess, I don't know. Part of me, I don't want to be mean, but part of me just sort of scoffs at that and goes, oh, well, you had the luxury of choosing Sufism, and you could ignore all the harshness of everything else. Like, you had that luxury, but a lot of us didn't, really.
I can understand.
Of it, I think.
Because I lived here all my life, and I had...
So did I. I was born and raised in Southern California. You know, I'm not from any other country, so...
Mm-hmm. In the sense that it's more of this culture, and I understand there's some really strict parents that I've seen, and very harsh, and...
It wasn't my parents, no. I feel like you're just bringing up other things. I'm talking about Islam as a whole, like Muslims as a whole, most of the mosques, most of the community. Like, you have the luxury of going to one mosque and saying, oh, I don't like this, I'm going to go to some other mosque. This is the Islam I'm going to convert to. But, like, the rest of us have to live with the majority of Muslims. So I guess I just don't get why you could pick this tiny minority of Islam and say, this is the right one, I'm going to go with this one. And everybody else is just too harsh or whatever.
Well, I do live with a Muslim community. I'm married to a Muslim woman. You know, I married someone that's Muslim. And
I'm just talking about the majority versus, you know you're in a tiny minority as a Sufi. I hope you understand that. Like, you're... My parents would not even say you were Muslim, so so I'm talking about the majority here. So you had this luxury as a convert of just sailing into the nice part of Islam and just building your life there, and that's great.
The nice part?
Yes, it is. It totally is. Come on, right?
Okay, it's
They're
interesting.
all spirituality.
No. Historically, this is a really strange. I don't know where this idea came from. I think maybe it's because some groups, like I think the Mevlevis would be one, are very pacific, are very ecumenical, you know, and to have that appeal. But Sufis have been the worst when it comes to Islam. It's amazing. It's like when you look at history and you look at all the major jihads leading up from around 1500 till 1900, I think the overwhelming majority of them were Sufi-led and Sufi precipitated, and often defensive against, say, Russian imperialism, but often aggressive as well, like Sufi-led invasion of Tibet in around like 1500 or something. You know, like they've been the worst, or amongst the worst. I would say they're on the same tier as Wahhabis. In fact, they've done far more because they've been around for much longer. And they were more popular for longer. So Sufis have been the worst, like amongst the worst when it comes to violent imposition. I don't know where this bloody Sufis is so peaceful. I don't know where it comes from.
It's an American thing. It's very much an American thing. Like in the U.S., Sufism has become the sort of, we're not all about enforcing rules on everybody. We're just about love and spirituality and meditation. Like that's what Sufis are in the U.S. That's what I can speak to.
Like kind of Buddhist then.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, I think it's good though. I'd much rather. I mean, you know,
exactly. I was just going to say exactly that.
But I'd much rather this sort of esoteric and that's a tautology. But I'd much rather this sort of more pacific and ecumenical and loving varieties would be popular as opposed to the Naqshbandis or something, or some more conservative Sufi group, you know. So, you know, I mean, I just find it really interesting, the conceptions.
If you just said that you enjoy the community, what is it about Islam that you enjoy most? Is it the rituals, the rigor, the security, the community, the social aspect? What is it that you enjoy most?
I'm not sure. The community is one thing, but it's more about the practice, I think, than anything else.
The practice of what?
You know, salat and some of the zikr, and you know, reading. I'm always a big reader, so I read all different types of things. But it's just that it has become a part of me, I guess. I don't know if there's a specific thing that's more.
Okay, the thing is that I try and conceptualize, all right, and I try and understand what makes people do certain things, and here I really have no idea what to make of it. Because I can't really see
think
what appeals to you and why you would want to do something, because you can read without Islam, you can go and like meditate without Islam, but I don't see anything specifically Muslim in what you are saying, and this is where I have a sort of a conceptual and understanding problem.
It could be the traditional object. I didn't want anything that was just like New Agey or anything like that. I guess its whole concept I really kind of stuck to, and it seems solid in the sense that where I could be more fluid. It's hard to explain.
Okay, well, I guess it's just one flavor. It's just one opinion out of many. Okay, we just need to accept it like that. Yeah.
Correct.
I guess. I mean, you said you didn't want something New Age, but from where I'm sitting, I grew up in a New Age community, by the way. It's I feel like people converting to like not to like trivialize your experience or anything, but what you're describing seems to me exactly that phenomenon of people. In the West, some people feel dissatisfied with this sort of what they see as this empty, soulless, mechanical, modern Western society, and they look for a deeper meaning. And there's like a smorgasbord of different philosophies that people are usually drawn to. And I think Sufism is one of those. But also you have Buddhism, or romanticize certain conceptions of Buddhism. You have various sort of New Age philosophies and movements and cults and so I think it's exactly that. And in Australia, it's Buddhism. Buddhism's the big one that everyone converts to. So I think the fastest growing religion in Australia is Buddhism. And I don't think it's from immigration. I think a big part, or not purely immigration, I think a big part of it is a lot of people convert to Buddhism. So I think, in fact, the phenomenon that you've described, your conversion, I think totally, perfectly fits into that pattern of people being drawn to the New Age and to sort of alternatives, or some deeper meaning. Does that make sense?
I would add, this is my experience as an American in the United States, born and raised. Part of it too is, if you look at other countries, like if you look at China, Christianity is very popular among young rebellious types out there.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
And Korea.
So the religion that isn't your parents' religion, I think sometimes seems sexier because, your parents aren't forcing you to do it. So you get to sort of have this freedom where you can go out there and do what you'd like with it and figure it out for yourself. So I think there's an appeal there too.
Okay, well then, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Green Souls?
No, I'm just listening, but I definitely hear that point.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so I guess it's coming on the hour, so we should probably pack it up, eh? So do you want to do sort of last
the
thoughts?
Hadith of the day. The Hadith of the week by, who is it today? Oh, it doesn't say who it is by. Okay, this is just from Sahih Muslim, and it's book 12:199. I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, there would arise at the end of the age a people who would be young in age and immature in thought, but they would talk in such a manner as if their words are the best among the creatures. They would recite the Quran, but it would not go beyond their throats, and they would pass through the religion as an arrow goes through the prey. So when you meet them, kill them, for in their killing you would get a reward with Allah. For in their killing you would get a reward with Allah on the day of judgment.
Oh, you can't be serious, bro. You cannot be serious. What the hell, man? Like,
The Hadith are a stockpile of fun miscellanea.
Oh man, we could probably do a whole other show just about Yom Al Qiyamah stuff because I was obsessed with that. I was completely obsessed with end time stuff. So yeah, no, I remember that one, and I remember thinking, how am I supposed to tell the difference between them and other people? What if I kill the wrong person?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
now you come out with this. Yes.
I think it's a Kharijite. I think it's a reference to the Kharijites, actually. So, it's probably, at someone later on, there's this conflict between different kinds of Muslims, and so someone creates this hadith to legitimize killing or conflicting with their Muslim enemies.
It almost sounds like an old man shaking his cane and saying, "You young people think we're better than them." It's not okay.
Well, anyway,
right, do we want to get last thoughts?
I'm sorry?
Do we want to do like last thoughts now, like closing thoughts kind of shtick?
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with everybody. I especially admire what's the screen name here, Green Souls, for coming on with a bunch of ex-Muslims, including cranky old me. So yeah, props to you. I look forward to seeing more of this stuff and more ex-Muslim discussions because this has been great, really.
Cool. Okay, but let's go in reverse order. Let's just Green Souls. Do you have any last thoughts, or do you want to say cheers?
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and enjoy talking with all of you. And hopefully, I could come back. I would definitely love to hang out again.
Absolutely.
And I love the Nietzsche picture. That was my favorite philosopher after high school. So.
That's funny. Thank you.
Cool. All right, I guess TJ, what are your last thoughts, summary kind of thing?
I mean, really, it's just been a really great discussion. I mean, it's hard to find secular people, atheist people within the South Asian community. It's, I can say it's very, either people don't come out and just keep it to themselves because they don't want to break that traditional mold. So it's always, it's always good because I think the South Asian community is probably one of the most rigid, rigid and conservative, really communities out there that doesn't want to, break the fold and break the mold. So, when I meet somebody of my ilk, if you will, it's always a good thing. So, I will definitely drink to that.
I agree.
Okay, thank you for that.
Before we finish, is there what are you working on now, Heina? What should we look forward to in the future? And do you want to point people in a direction to access your materials, like a blog or something?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I blog at Free Thought Blogs. My blog is called Heinous Dealings. So it's freethoughtblogs.com/heinous. I am working on A Skeptic's Guide to Islam, which I kickstarted 2 years ago. I know, guys, it's late. I'm working on that, and that's essentially my little FAQ on Islam. It's not, an intensive scholarly work, but it's more commonly asked questions about Islam and some answers and some directions to point people in. So I'm working on that. I speak all over the U.S. At various things. So on my blog, I have a whole link to where I'm going to be speaking and things like that. And I keep pretty busy that way between a book and the speaking and the blogging and everything. I don't just blog about Islam, but Islam is definitely one of the things I blog about the most.
I wonder why. All right, and on that bombshell.
Cool. See you guys later.
All right, good night, or morning, whatever it is for you.